Good Thursday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Ryan Cavanaugh will join us. We'll preview some of the high school football games from across Northeast Ohio, but we begin by talking Browns and some news out of Berea yesterday is Greg Newsome not going. The calf injury will keep him on the sidelines against the Vikings. He will not go on IR, but with him out, Greedy Williams gets the start. Greedy Williams says he's ready.
No, I don't let emotion get the best of me. I just, take it day by day. And, as the time comes, the game approach, that's, when my mind clicked in. So I'm already, mentally prepared for anything. So.
How have you felt in the snaps that you've gotten so far on defense?
I felt great. Didn't really worry about, the injury or none of that. So, I feel like I'm, 100% ready to go.
And, of course, Greedy Williams coming back from a shoulder injury that caused him to miss all of last year, was limited throughout training camp. Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAM 1100 as well as 106.9. D-Man, Greg Newsome, you didn't hear his name, which means as a cornerback he was doing pretty good. So with Newsome out, Greedy Williams in, you got to be a little bit concerned, right?
Yes, Dave. Greg Newsome is going to be a really good player in the league, and to have him out is a problem for Cleveland. Yeah, Greedy Williams, time for him to step up, but I have my doubts, especially given that he's had an injury history. I prefer Newsome, but you got to deal with it. I think that the Vikings, though, will look to exploit. They will target Greedy Williams.
Yeah, and kind of interestingly, through 3 weeks, teams were not going at Greg Newsome, which, when you think about it, with a rookie, is kind of interesting in and of itself. Well, Odell Beckham Jr. back on the field, and Odell, kind of a little bit of a self-evaluation of how he did in Week 1, and talked a little bit about chemistry with Baker Mayfield.
I like that I just played. Never got too high, never got too low. And there's obviously plenty of things I could work on, clean up, and that's what we do. We come here, we watch the film, reevaluate ourselves, see where we can get better, and then, you kind of you work on that for the week.
It seemed throughout the game, Baker was looking to hit a home run with you, although it didn't happen. Was there conversation? It's there, it's not there?
It's just the game plan that we have. There's plays in there that we will have opportunities throughout the year, and I'm sure that we will hit them, and just whenever the opportunity presents itself, just make the most of it.
And D-Man, I didn't think they really forced it. I think early in the game they tried to get the ball in his hands just to kind of get him settled down. But other than that, I thought it was in the flow. And with the way they're running the football, there's going to be opportunities for the deep game to come into play.
I 100% agree with you, Dave. I didn't think anything was forced with Odell Beckham. Maybe they could find a throw or two in there that was, but I thought Beckham was a factor in the win. It was great to see him out there. He was open even more than the amount of receptions that he got. He could have had over 100 yards in receiving yards if Baker had been accurate, specifically on that one deeper ball down the left sideline. So, yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. made an impact, and, he said he was winded, and, he said he didn't have his legs under him. Perfectly understandable. If that's a winded and heavy-legged Odell Beckham Jr., I'm good with it. I expect him to be better than this, but this was a good start to his reacclimation to NFL games that matter, and he is definitely a factor in this offense.
And because of the way that game went, people tend to forget that Bears defense was actually a pretty good defense. It's the offensive side of the ball that's challenged, but that defense that the Browns put up a couple hundred yards rushing on is a really good defense.
Yeah, and Khalil Mack, he was injured during the game and didn't play as many snaps as he would have liked. But overall, that defense is good. It has been good in the past. And, in recent past where you've got a decent number of guys still there. So yeah, I mean, the Browns, that they were able to run the ball for more than 200 yards is a really good sign. And the fact that Odell just seemed to assimilate, he seemed to fit in there. It wasn't where Odell had to be the focal point. And honestly, I'm looking at a new, I would say new and evolved Odell Beckham Jr., or listening to a new and evolved Odell. When I hear him speak, he seems to be a lot more mellow. And yes, the competitive fire still burns. Yes, he wants to be great, but it doesn't feel like there's going to be any kind of any issues with him as far as the amount of touches that he may or may not get.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he.
And by the way, Dave, let me jump in. He would submit he's never made those waves. I mean, he would say that we've all made it out to be much more than it is since he arrived here in Cleveland. But I think there have been indications with his body language and some of his wording that he wasn't happy with certain things as far as balls going his way. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore.
No, I don't either. So Pro Football Focus, a matchup to watch each and every game. For the Browns-Vikings game, it is Myles Garrett against left tackle Rashad Hill. Hill's a sixth-year pro, and he has the sixth lowest pass blocking grade of any left tackle through 3 weeks. So they're saying Hill has had trouble blocking and has allowed a lot of pressure. That is not a good thing when you're looking up the matchup with Myles Garrett, who is coming off franchise record 4.5 sacks.
Yeah, I mean, that performance that he and the line put on against the Bears was historic. I mean, for Myles, the single game franchise record 4.5 sacks, and then the 9 sacks as a team, as a unit. I got to give tons of props to Joe Woods, the defensive coordinator. The job he did in confusing and flummoxing and otherwise frustrating. Here's a visit from Kinger. Otherwise frustrating Justin Fields. You got to give Joe Woods his props. And Woods would say, hey, the players do it, but I get tired of hearing Joe Woods getting knocked for, his shortcomings as a DC, when I could see that a lot of it's not his fault. Well, here's a case where the defense was tremendous. You need to give Joe Woods his due. Well, what makes a defense coordinator look good? Players such as Myles Garrett, players such as Jadeveon Clowney with 2 sacks. Welcome to the party, Jadeveon, his first 2 as a Brown. The good news for the Browns against Fields was they were able to get home with 4-man pressure. They didn't go like 6 or 7-man blitzes very often, if at all. I can't recall, but the blitzes that I saw that were effective only required 1 additional rusher, so 5. But the fact that Woods has got these guys moving around on the line, they're not predictable in where they're coming from. Some of it's stunts, but some of it's strictly lining up in different places. I think Myles Garrett should be licking his chops, especially on the whatever you want to call the surface that they play on in Minnesota. It's easy to get off quickly on a surface like that.
So John Johnson talked about Kirk Cousins, quarterback for the Vikings, and the challenge that this Vikings offense presents.
Yeah, he's a veteran, and the thing that jumps out to me, he has weapons around him. Jefferson, he's a household name. Thielen has been around for a minute. He's a savvy vet. And then we're anticipating Dalvin Cook running the ball, so he's, I'd say, like a top 3, top 5 back in this league. So it's a challenge for us this week, and we just got to try to disrupt him, get guys in the way of his passing lanes, and hopefully our rush gets home. So it'll be a challenge.
What strikes you about Jefferson? How would you describe him, and what kind of challenge he is?
Yeah, I'd just say he's like a complete receiver. He can run every route. He has twitch. He's real sudden. And I think he's just a playmaker, just a full-on playmaker. He wants to make plays. He wants to be the guy. He wants the ball in his hand. So I think we just got to, get our hands on him and challenge him at the line of scrimmage and just go from there.
And D-Man, you think Dalvin Cook, who likely will play, they're expecting him potentially come back and play, Jefferson, Thielen, those are guys that can make plays. There's some explosion there.
There's no doubt. And Kirk Cousins, the veteran, the wily veteran, doesn't get a lot of credit for being a good quarterback, but he is. Is he great? No. But is he good? Yes. Can you win with a Kirk Cousins? Yes. This is the Stefanski Bowl from the Cleveland side of it, because we know Kevin Stefanski knows everything he needs to know about the Vikings. That said, it's also the Mike Zimmer Bowl, because Zimmer, on the other side of it, would say, hey, I know Kevin Stefanski like the back of my hand, so I know what the Browns are about. I know what he's up to. And, we practiced against Stefanski and his offensive schemes. So it's like mirror images of each other. And that's why I expect it to be a well-played game, a close game. I mean, think about the Vikings. Dave Bacon, they're 1-2, but they could be, not should be, but could be 3-0. They opened in Cincinnati, lost at the buzzer. They went to Arizona and should have beaten that one's a should have, not a could have. They should have beaten the Cardinals, who are being ballyhooed now because they're 3-0 in their matchup with the Rams. But Greg Joseph pushed a field goal that would have won that. And then they come home to beat the Seahawks. So this is a formidable opponent.
Yeah, I would agree. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We're going to continue talking Browns-Vikings on the other side of the break. Odell Beckham's importance to the Browns offense. Plus, one of the Browns has the highest PFF pass blocking grade this season. We'll tell you who. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
To new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. So, Keyshawn Johnson and Max Kellerman on the KJM show on ESPN talked about the importance of Odell Beckham to the Browns.
Health is always important, but what I would say about OBJ and the Cleveland Browns, he left or got moved from the New York Giants, and I know it just hurts your heart when I said that, to the Cleveland Browns. But who was his coaches? He hadn't even had a chance to even develop in Cleveland under Kevin Stefanski.
100%.
So
the fact
now,
is, he was not there when Stefanski was there.
Now he's there. He's going to be a different player.
And I know what this sounds like. I think what Baker Mayfield needs is a dynamic pass catcher like Odell. Without Odell, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. With Odell, I think they're legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I know what that sounds like. I believe it.
And D-Man, I know you're going to give me the pump the brakes sign there, but when you think about it, Odell had a lot of the things that Baker had with a bunch of different coaches.
Yeah, that's a very good analysis by Keyshawn Johnson and Max Kellerman. Very measured, nothing hyperbolic. And I'll buy into a lot of it. Even as I say pump the brakes about Super Bowl talk with the Browns, I'll believe it when they get to the AFC Championship game, first of all, because we know they got to the divisional round last year. But as far as the importance of Odell, yes, I have evolved in my thinking too about Odell. Like I thought he was a problem last year, and I thought that there were issues with trying to force feed him, and Yes, he got injured, and that was very unfortunate. But before that, it didn't. I don't know. It didn't feel like a good fit. But as I hear the new and evolved Odell Beckham Jr., it feels like a different Odell. He would say he's always been the same, but it just feels different with him. Sounds different. The point, though, about what the Kellerman made about the Browns needing an explosive receiver such as Odell is absolutely right. I mean, you can't trust Anthony Schwartz with, even though he's got world-class speed, you can't trust him because he's raw. He's a good guy to invest in. He was a good pick to make. I'm glad they got him. But if you're looking for Anthony Schwartz to carry you on take the top off the defense side of it, I think you're mistaken, and I know the Browns aren't. Who's the guy that can threaten over the top? It's definitely Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah. So Pro Football Focus ranks pass blocking and everything analytically driven. So Joel Bitonio of the Browns is the only NFL player with a 90-plus pass blocking grade for the season. He's almost 91 at 90.7. So Joel Bitonio getting it done. Now the Browns center, J.C. Tretter, talked about this offense and the thought that it can be even better.
I think we played pretty well. There's always going to be things to improve on. I think we've ran the ball well. We've ran the ball efficiently. I think there's always going to be things to get better at. If you're as good as you're going to be in week 3, you're not going to be very good. So we're going to need to continue to improve week after week throughout the rest of the season in order to get to where we want to go. So we can clean up our pass protection a little more. I think that was something we need to do better from last week. But overall, everything, even our run game that we've done really efficiently so far, needs to continue to improve. There's still yards we feel we've left out there. So we're just going to continue to get better every single day.
And we talked about Bitonio's pass blocking grade, but the Browns' offensive line did allow 5 sacks. So that's something that needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, there is improvement that it can be made, and I'm glad the great J.C. Tretter, one of the most underrated players in the game, mentioned that if you feel like you've reached your plateau in week 3, then you got real problems. Let's remember about the Bears game. The Bake Show, Baker Mayfield, wasn't exactly all world. I mean, he didn't dominate. He missed some big throws. I think it was a solid game for Baker, but nothing over the moon. Nick Chubb, yeah, he led the Browns in rushing, but it didn't feel like a Chubb game. So it's good news that the Browns were able to win by 20, even though Baker Mayfield was solid and Nick Chubb was solid, but neither one of them was awesome. And they still won by 20. So that's good to know. But, yeah, there were some protection issues. Some of it is attributable definitely to as you mentioned, Dave, the potency of the Bears D-line and the potency of the Bears rush. So you have to give the other team, which gets paid too, you have to give them their due. But I see areas where the Browns can clean up in pass protection, run blocking, all across the board. But that's the case with almost every team.
Yeah, and the good news is Baker Mayfield, in a game that was probably subpar for him, didn't turn the ball over. That was the biggest thing, so he didn't hurt the Browns. So Joe Woods talked about the Browns' defense and being aggressive. Seemed like they were more aggressive against the Bears. Here's Joe Woods.
Yeah, really, early in the game, the same exact calls, same exact protection we had against Houston was the same stuff. I just think we did a better job in terms of executing. And then we got them behind the chains, so we had some more things we could get to. So we ran some more pressure, gave them some different looks, and the guys executed. I got to give them all the credit.
Because the players seem to be pushing for more and more of that.
Yeah, it's always in. It's just a matter of how the game's going, how the guys are executing.
Dean, it was like night and day. So if those were the same things, there's a dramatic difference in how they played and the execution, as he said.
Yeah, and I keep using the term felt like or feel like. It felt like the Browns were blitzing on every other play. But when you go back and look at it, they weren't. And the reason it felt that way is because the four-man rush was getting home. And you credit the talent of the Browns who were, at that particular snap. And also some of the, shall we say, deficiencies of the Bears' offensive line. Mr. Peters comes to mind. So the Bears had issues blocking. The Browns were on fire on the front. So it looked like Joe Woods was attacking more early than he actually was. And then, as he said, he turned it loose later when he knew that he had Justin Fields rattled. I mean, he didn't say that specifically, but you could tell he had Fields rattled, and they were, facing second and long, third and long, so he could do some more things and be more creative. And that's been my point all along about Joe Woods. I have the utmost faith in Woods. I think he's a terrific football mind, specifically defensive mind. It's just that he hasn't had the marriage or the intersection of talent and opportunity. On Sunday, he had talent and opportunity. He had guys who could get to the quarterback. He had guys who could cover receivers. He had playmakers. And most importantly, he had the opportunity, which is to say, a rookie quarterback making his first NFL start who didn't look all that good in a relief role the previous week when the Bears hung on to beat the Bengals. And so he saw that, and he knew that he could do more because it was like the Belichick approach to a rookie quarterback, only Joe Woods did it.
The D-man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll go through some of the storylines. One of them, are these two of the best backfields in the NFL that will face each other? Also, Joe Woods and John Johnson will talk about Browns don't have many turnovers this year. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports for CLE continues. We continue talking Browns as they get ready for their game against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. Marcus Spears on ESPN's NFL Live, former player, talked about the Browns and how this team looks.
When OBJ was out and the whole talk was about, is it Baker is forcing the football to him? No, it's more knowledge. It's understanding what this offense is supposed to look like and understanding week by week. Certain guys may have 130. One guy may have 2 or 3 catches, right? And the team has to live in that era. When you look at the Cleveland Browns and you think about completeness, and I'm trying to identify these teams. Dallas, I've seen it. We've talked about them. I've seen it with Buffalo after week 1 against the Steelers where they got a little bit of the ground game going, got backs involved. And Cleveland, obviously, with what they have with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. But when you think about this football team from the standpoint of
what do you mean with those teams, though? What are you trying to say?
The ability to play however you need to offensively.
The way we spoke about Dallas earlier.
The way we spoke about Dallas. And when you think, when we get to Cleveland, we talked about the talent. We knew it would take time for this maturation process to come about. But now when you look at this team with Odell Beckham Jr. back under a new situation, with Baker Mayfield understanding what Stefanski wants to do, that's what makes them more dangerous than they were last year.
And Dennis, I think what he's saying is, again, Odell adds another element to it, and everybody's a little bit better because they've been in the system a year.
Yeah, I love Marcus Spears no matter what, and even if he's saying something negative about the Browns, but Spears is fantastic at what he does. And, I'm glad he brought up the egalitarian aspect of it, because it isn't just, the Cowboys that they were talking about recently. Think about the Belichick blueprint, the Belichick-Brady blueprint. We think about that now, especially because Brady is going into Foxborough for the first time as an opponent on Sunday night to face Belichick. But Tom Brady, as great as he is, and he's the GOAT, he's the greatest of all time, his passing numbers periodically during a season were pedestrian. They weren't incredibly eye-popping numbers every single week. He was capable of putting up monster numbers, but the game plan didn't call for it. The expert brains of Belichick and Josh McDaniels on the offensive side were able to identify, okay, what is it going to take to beat this particular team on this particular day? And they exploited those weaknesses. And at the end of the day of the box score, you'd look at it and go, oh, well, Brady didn't do a whole lot. Well, you know what? He didn't have to. And there are games where Baker Mayfield doesn't have to set the world on fire. This past Sunday was one of them. The offense, for a change, was playing complementary, with an E, to the defense. The defense was carrying the day. It was obvious what the defense was doing, especially early when the offense couldn't get anything going. Even when the offense got going in the second half, it was still a defensive game. So you can play complementary football and win, and in that complementary football, certain individuals don't have to have glowing numbers. As long as Mayfield recognizes it, which I think he does, as long as Odell recognizes it, which I now think he does, I think this team is fine with sharing the load and working week to week to exploit an individual opponent's defenses.
So Pro Football Focus, analytics website, storyline for each and every game for the Browns. These are two of the best backfields in the NFL, and you got Cook and Madison who played really well. So are you in on that?
I mean, I definitely believe that about the Browns. The Vikings have looked good so far. I'm trying to think of other terrific backfields. I think Dallas would want a seat at that table with Zeke and Pollard. That comes to mind. The Ravens, obviously, before they got hurt, they seemingly had every running back get hurt. Maybe Tampa Bay deserves a little bit. Green Bay, with Jones and anybody else. I mean, I guess if you're talking about duos, okay, but they're certainly formidable, the two of them.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because it'll be a challenge for the Browns to kind of deal with that running game. All right, one of the things the Browns defense wants to do is turn the football over. Really haven't done that just yet, even though they played really well and basically dominated the Bears. Didn't turn the ball over. Here is Joe Woods and John Johnson just on trying to create those turnovers.
Yeah, we looked at the game, and there's 2 or 3 calls I wish I could have back, and there were some couple things that we didn't execute well. A lot of stuff we did, but there was a few things we had to clean up. But at the end of the game, I had no idea. I looked up at the scoreboard, and I was, what's that? And then I didn't know anything until I went in the locker room and somebody said something to me. But we pride ourselves on wanting to take away the football, and we haven't really got that done the first 3 weeks, so we have to get better in that area.
No, it's not unusual. It was kind of like the opportunities were scarce,
They only have 40.
Every time we looked up, the quarterback was on the ground, or he threw the ball at the ground. So the opportunities were scarce, but mine ended up coming. I tried to cash in. I feel like it could have went either way, but anytime you get your hands on the ball, I feel like they come in bunches. So I think just having the opportunity to catch it, feel the moment, even though it got called back, I think it'll be big. But definitely want to look for those opportunities and maybe even score on them moving them forward in the season.
And Dennis, that's of course, pass interference, which probably was pass interference, was kind of questionable. That negated the interception by John Johnson. But this is a defense, every time they talk about turning the ball over. So you know that is a message that is front and center in front of that unit.
Yeah, theme of the day, Dave, or theme of the show felt like I'm totally agree with Joe Woods. I couldn't believe there were no turnovers forced or executed by the Browns defense on the Bears offense. That was such a suffocating defensive game. You're going, how was there not a turnover? And as Johnson said, it's not bragging if it's true. Every time you looked, seemingly every time you looked up there, looked down at the line of scrimmage, there was Fields on the ground. Yeah, I mean, you'd like to have turnovers to add to it, and help your offense out with short fields and everything. But when you can dominate an offense to the extent that the Browns defense did, 47 total yards, 1 net passing yard, I suppose you don't need turnovers, and you hold the team to 6 points, but it would be nice to get some, yes.
Yeah, I would agree. And the flip side of it is 1 of 11 is what the Bears were on third down, so they got the football back and did not allow any sustained drives. All right, the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAM 106.9 FM, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear Dennis's area of concerns and our picks against the spread. We're not doing too well, but this is the week maybe we rebound. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I continue talking Browns as they get ready to face the Vikings 1 o'clock Sunday in Minnesota. So, Dennis, through 3 weeks, Browns 2-1. Areas of concern for this football team?
Is Baker Mayfield going to be able to carry this team to victory by virtue of his spectacular quarterback play? And, I mean, he was really good. He's been really good so far, really accurate within the constructs, and that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. A lot of teams would like a quarterback like Baker, but I want to see a situation. Well, maybe I don't want to see this situation, because if I do see it, it means the running game's not up to snuff or whatever. But you get my point that when the time comes, and the time will come, where Baker has to be awesome, will he be able to answer the call, especially against quality opponents? There haven't been that many opportunities in his brief career, and he hasn't cashed in those opportunities for the most part. Here and there, yes, but the Ravens shootout comes to mind last year. But I want to see Baker Mayfield, if it's asked of him, carry this team to victory against a quality opponent.
Well, I think that's kind of the thing that's missing from the resume. He does that, he starts getting all the national recognition that seems to be a little slow. The momentum for him nationally is a little slower than it is here. But yeah, that's the one thing, that's kind of the next step. All right, time for our Pick 4 segment. We both went 1-3 last week. So Dennis, you're 5-7. I'm 4-8. If Matt Nagy would have told me he was going to have Justin Fields play from the pocket, I'd have given you as many points as you wanted. But I digress. All right, Browns are 2-point favorites on the road against the Vikings. So Browns -2 against the Vikings. Who you going with in the Browns game?
I'm going with the Vikes. I don't want to get yelled at by the worldwide audience here of Browns fans, but it's going to be close. And I think by doing this, by grabbing the 2, I can still win, the Browns outright because I'm a home dog. I just think the Vikings are better. I said it at the top of the show. They're better than 1-2. They could be 3-0. They're at home. They know Stefanski just as well as Stefanski knows them. So I think it's going to be a fight to the finish, and that's why I'm happy to take the 2 with the dog or the home dog.
I'm going to go with the Browns -2, and I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it's probably going to be on the high scoring side. The reason I like the Browns is I think the Vikings run defense, little suspect. If it comes down to a field goal, we know their kicker Greg Joseph has already missed a potential game winner. It was 36-yarder against the Arizona Cardinals.
And we've got
Cardinals.
Chase McLaughlin.
Chase looked good. You can't talk trash with Chase after that. Again, it's a 1 week shot of confidence, but I'm going to take the Browns -2. All right. Buccaneers and Patriots. The matchup, Tom Brady against the Hoodie. And Buccaneers, 7-point favorites in New England. Who you got in that one?
Yeah, you know what? I'm taking the Buccaneers, laying the points. I see this as at least 10, maybe 14. Tampa Bay is ripping and snorting after that loss to the Chargers out west. The Rams out west. So they're really upset with themselves, and they're itching to get back in the win column. Meanwhile, the Patriots aren't that good. And so that combination doesn't even take into play or into account the whole Belichick versus Brady dynamic. This is truly the Buccaneers against the Patriots. And the Buccaneers have many more ways to beat the Patriots than the Patriots have to beat the Buccaneers. I don't care if it's Belichick Brady. I don't care if it's Brady versus McDaniels. I don't care that it's in Foxborough. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -7.
Seahawks at San Francisco, 49ers 3-point favorites.
Yeah, I know it's dangerous to go against the Russ bus. A wounded Russell Wilson. I mean, wounded psychologically. I'm not saying he's hurt right now. But, the Seahawks at 1-2, they've been tripped up in some bad ways for them. They blew that huge lead against the Titans at home, and they lost in Minnesota, were handled by the Vikes in a comeback. After the Vikings came back to take the lead, they handled them. So you can't imagine, even with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, that era seemingly on the downturn, you don't see them losing 3 in a row. But the 49ers are coming off a loss, a game they thought they should have had against the Packers that could have pushed them to 3-0. They're at home. I think the 49ers are better than the Seahawks, and so I'll take the 49ers minus the points.
Lions at the Bears. Bears are 3-point favorites. Who you got in that one?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears, this is a recency bias. The Bears look so bad and so disjointed against the Browns, and we're not exactly sure what their quarterback situation is going to look like. So I admit I'm a prisoner of the moment, recency bias, that the Bears looking so bad influenced me to take the Lions plus the points. And the fact that the Lions could have, and if the clock operator were on his game, should have beaten the Baltimore Ravens in Detroit. So I think the Lions are capable, as long as the weather is decent, because when the weather's bad, Jared Goff just can't seem to grip the football. So if the weather's okay, I feel really good about my Lions pick, slight underdog at the Bears.
I almost went with that one, but I stayed off that. There's a couple more I like. So I'm going to go Washington football team -1 at Atlanta. I think Washington's defense dictates that game, and Antonio Gibson and McLaughlin and Logan Thomas, their tight end, do enough to beat the Falcons by at least 3. I'm going to go with the Rams -4 against the Cardinals. I'm not buying Arizona just yet, and I think the Rams are as good as advertised. Matthew Stafford looked really good beating the Buccaneers, and they have a number of offensive weapons for the Rams. So I'm going to go Rams -4 hosting the Cardinals. And then I was on the Ravens last week, which was a horrible pick against the Lions. Ravens +1 at Denver. And I know Denver's unbeaten, but Denver has not beaten a team who has won a game. They've beaten 3 0-3 teams. So I am going with the Ravens +1 in Mile High to get it done. So once again, D-Man, you have a 1-game lead. Neither one of us setting the world on fire, but we are good finishing pick guys. So we're looking for
long season too, Dave.
That's right. We're looking for a strong week 4 here. All right, D-Man, you can listen to him 1100 WTAM News Radio pre and post game for the Indians, as well as 106.9 FM. D-Man, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Dave.
All right, the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will hear from plenty of Minnesota Vikings what they see is going on with the Cleveland Browns. We continue to preview Browns-Vikings. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine and too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns football. 2-1 Browns getting ready to face the 1-2 Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota on Sunday, 1 o'clock. A different challenge for the Browns. Last week, they went against Justin Fields, making his first start at quarterback. This week, Kirk Cousins has thrown 8 touchdowns, no interceptions through the first 3 games. A guy that has been in the NFL for 10 years. Is Kirk Cousins playing as well as anybody in the NFL? One of his offensive teammates in Minnesota sure thinks so.
That was one of the best plays I've seen him. It was fading away, he dumped it off, and got up, he knew he hit his guy. So it was just fun watching him turn it loose, man. Seeing his attitude coming to the sideline. I just figured it was on the goal line one time we scored, and I seen him go to the sideline, and I was like, yeah, he dialed in. Like he dialed in. I just love seeing that from him. Him showing his emotion, like, when he first got here, it was like I'm figuring it out. Like I'm gonna get this thing done, but I'm gonna figure out in the meantime. I think he's figuring it out still, but like you seeing him comfortable. Like once he's comfortable, we give him a clean pocket. Best in the game, man. The best. Like just turning the ball loose and just being him, man. But you're starting to see that leadership side expand more. A few weeks ago, he came in halftime, turned us up, like just got us going, ready to play. Like come out the second half, because that was one of our drop-offs. Come out the halftime, ready to play. And he made sure, as the quarterback of the team, make sure we was ready to play to come out the half. Just little stuff like that. You seeing that with number 8, and you seeing that carry over to his play.
Would you say best in the game? You think he's playing better than any quarterback in the NFL now?
Yes.
Not backing off the best in the NFL, Dalvin Cook, talking about his quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Well, Mike Zimmer, Vikings head coach, was the head coach that Kevin Stefanski coached under for his last little bit in Minnesota. Of course, Stefanski was there for 14 years. Zimmer talked about what he sees from this Browns defense.
They're good players. Clowney and Garrett are good players. They rush the quarterback on the way to stop the run. So they're getting up the field and going. They're good athletes. A good Cleveland Browns team. They got a lot of very high picks. I think 3 number 1s out of the draft. Very physical offensively, defensively very fast. Really good front 4, 2 good corners. Do a good job in special teams. So need our fans to be nice and loud again this week. Should be a heck of a ball game.
And again, Mike Zimmer talking about what he sees with the Browns. So the Vikings realize one thing that will be a tough challenge for them is facing the Browns' offensive line and this running game.
They do a nice job. They block well together. They're a physical group. They got 2 backs that do a great job of running with physicality, that have really good vision. So we're going to have our hands full.
They had a bunch of yards against Chicago last week. They got a good scheme. They run a combination of different plays. They got, the weak side runs, the strong side runs. They motion and shift like every single play, so they try to get you in some bad misfits. And they got good backs and good line.
They got a good O-line, good physical O-line. Then you add that with 2 good backs, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. The 2 of the best in the game. So you put that together, you got a good running game. And then you add the brains of Kevin Stefanski, then you mix it up a little bit, then you get a whole bunch of stuff. So it's a little hand-in-hand of both. Good coaches, good running backs, good offensive line, and you put it together, it's a mixture of great things. So that's what we're facing on Sunday. We got to slow it down.
Dalvin Cook, the thought is he probably will be able to play on Sunday. Still not 100% definitive. He missed the win over Seattle last Sunday. Vikings defensive coordinator Andre Patterson talked about Kevin Stefanski. Stefanski has a lot of familiarity with the Vikings system and how they do things. He grew up in the organization, started as an intern, was there 14 years. But Patterson doesn't think there's an advantage because Stefanski is so familiar with the Vikings' way of doing things.
I'm not worried about it. It works both ways, right? We know what he likes to do too. So, to me, it evens out, right? I mean, but both sides know each other very well, and so it evens out. It's not like it's a one-way street. So it's not really that big of a concern for me because you know what? Kevin's not blocking anybody. He's not throwing a pass. He's not catching a pass. He's not tackling anybody. So what it comes down to is how well their players play and how well our players play. That's what the game's going to come down to. We've seen it every day when he was here. So it's still, to me, that's the thing is, you look at it, and it's like I told the guys today. I mean, offensively, we practiced against this every day. But now what we got to do is defeat the guys he has there. I don't know if that makes sense to you, what I'm saying, right? So it's not that it's unusual for us to see all this. We had to go against it every single day in practice when he was here, right? So they've done that. Well, now we have to play against their 5 offensive line, their 2 good tight ends, Beckham, the receiver. They got 2 great running backs. The quarterback's a good player. So it's about those guys. Okay, we can't lose focus on that because those are the guys that we got to go defeat and defend to give us a chance to win the game. So it's not like our guys haven't had that experience of seeing motions and shifts over and over again. That's what we saw every day in practice when he was here.
And again, the schemes are similar enough that you probably won't surprise anybody with anything. So it's up to the players to go out and do it. We talked a little bit about Kirk Cousins earlier and how Dalvin Cook thinks he's playing as well as anybody in the NFL. Kirk Cousins talked about what he expects to see Sunday from the Browns.
Really good team coming into our house. Well-coached team. You know, they've had success now. Going back to last year, the big playoff when they had on the road. They got some, great draft picks that have done a great job for them. You really see talented players all over their roster. I have a lot of respect for not only Kevin as their head coach, but really a lot of their staff as well. I know a few people on their staff and have great respect for them. So I know they'll be well coached and ready to go, and it'll be a grind. And that's the kind of mindset we have to have going into the game. Understand it's going to be a physical game and a battle all 4 quarters.
Browns and Vikings, 1 o'clock Sunday in Minnesota. Browns currently 2-point road favorites over the Vikings. Again, a 1 o'clock kickoff in Minnesota on Sunday. We're step aside. Take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we shift our focus to high school football and what's going on. We will preview a couple big games coming up tomorrow. Ryan Cavanaugh from Spectrum News 1 will join us. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We turn our attention to several games going on tomorrow. High school football. Let's welcome in Ryan Cavanaugh, analyst for Spectrum News 1 and their game of the week, the OHSAA game of the week. Ryan, good to see you. The game you and I will be at calling, Benedictine at Brecksville. What do you see in this one?
Well, man, this is 2 teams that appear to be headed in different directions, but Brecksville, there's some explanation. They've got a 1-5 record. They may have the most difficult schedule in Northeast Ohio. Of their 5 losses, those teams' combined record is 24-6. Brecksville's also faced some adversity. Prior to the season, 2 offensive line starters were injured. They had a couple wrestlers that were planning on playing returning starters. They're focusing on that sport. We know how big wrestling is out at Brecksville. And then their stud, Matt Rose, who's committed to go to Stanford, dislocated his elbow at the beginning of camp. Didn't play in week 1 against Hilliard Darby, wasn't 100% in week 2 against Avon Lake, but he's back. So you're going to see him running the football. We look at the positives for Brecksville. Starts with the head coach, Martin Potter, who frankly is very good at offense. and very good at developing quarterbacks. You know, he had Kyle Van Treese at Stowe, of course, Joe Labus at Brecksville prior to, and in week 3 against Strongsville, he turned the keys to the offensive Cadillac over to sophomore quarterback Colin Siebert. Very high ceiling. So we're going to see him throw the ball around a little bit. The challenge for Brecksville and anybody else who stands across the sidelines from the number 1 ranked Division II Benedictine Bengals is how do you cover the speed? They placed top 3 in the 4x200 and 4x400 last year, and all 4 of those guys are playing wide receiver. We're talking Brandon Boyd, Marvin Conkle, Terrell Greer, and Quincy Johnson. Of course, it starts with the quarterback, C.J. Yarbrough, over 1,000 yards passing, 13 TDs, 1 interception. Fireworks all over for the Bengals.
Yeah, top-ranked team in the state in Division II as well. All right, the third-ranked team in the state in Division II is in that same region. 6-0, Hudson gets their toughest test against 5-1 Nordonia. Hudson has scored 40 points or better except for week 3 against Harding.
Yeah, absolutely. They're averaging almost 40 because of that. And Warren Harding's a very good defensive football team. This is the Jeff Bowl. Jeff Goff, head coach of Hudson. Jeff Fox, head coach of Nordonia. Everybody in this area knows these guys can coach. They've been there. They've done that. The question for both these teams is their strength of schedule thus far. Nordonia does have wins over Bedford and Berea, but we start a stretch where 3 of their next opponents are Hudson, Stowe, and Benedictine. That being said, similarities. Running back Aiden Lau at Hudson has been tearing it up. Brian Russ at Nordonia has been an absolute monster, and their quarterbacks have been very efficient. This is what I believe will be a very high-scoring game. Nordonia, Jeff Fox is very good at calling offensive plays and scheming against defenses. And you know what happens, Dave, when you have 2 teams, you're expecting high-powered offense and a lot of scoring. It's whose defense shows up. And both of them have shown flashes. Hudson holds teams to under 17 points per game. And most of those points have been in some of the larger margin victories. And last week, Nordonia held Wadsworth to 136 yards of total offense, sacked their quarterback 5 times. So both teams can score. Which defense shows up?
Well, and then Saturday, you know, it's the game. St. Ignatius, St. Ed's. St. Ed's 6-0 really hadn't been challenged. St. Ignatius 4-2 has won 4 in a row, including beating Hoban with a blocked field goal on the last play. This one always seems to be close.
It's incredible. I mean, you just went through the records, Ignatius 4-game winning streak, but throw the records out. Let's talk about Ignatius. Here's what the challenges are going to be. A couple of weeks ago, they lost their best defensive player, Peter Shalhoub. Word is we may see Peter on Saturday against Ed. That would be a big boost. Last week, quarterback Joe Pfaff went out injured. In came Pierce Spencer, who was admirable in that backup role. But some of the problems Ignatius has had this year is big plays from their wide receivers, getting open, completing passes. St. Ed's has a very good defensive backfield. I look for them to stack the box and try to take the workhorse St. Ignatius running back Marty Lenahan out of the game. Speaking of workhorses in the offensive backfield, Danny Enovich has been just that for St. Ed's. They're going to feed him. And in Coach Tom Lombardo's offense, you got to watch for that quarterback, keep on the zone read, Christian Ramos. He's a veteran now, and he can throw the ball as well. So that's where I think it is. And I'd be remiss, Eds is 5-0 last week. If I didn't mention their win last week against a club team from Virginia, and they played them, it doesn't count on their record because Bishop Sycamore was taken off their schedule. So I knew we weren't going to get through the whole season without me dropping a Bishop Sycamore, Dave.
All right, Ryan Cavanaugh, as always, man. Appreciate the time and the insight. We will see you tomorrow. Look forward to Benedictine at Brecksville. It'll be fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, Ryan Cavanaugh, analyst for Spectrum News 1's high school football. All right, each week, the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students from across the entire state. Once a year, they recognize a school, the school of the year from the previous entries, all the schools that have had shining stars and academic all-stars from the previous year entered, and they pick a school of the year. This year's School of the Year, the Stowe Monroe Falls Bulldogs. This week's Shining Stars.
Hi, I'm Pat McDonald, Ohio Lottery Director. Every year, our Partners in Education program names the School of the Year. And this year, I'm excited to announce Stowe Monroe Falls High School as a winner of the School of the Year. We're proud of the students and staff, and we're excited to present them with this award. Now here's Governor Mike DeWine with a message for the students and staff.
Thanks, Director McDonald. Congratulations to everyone at Stowe Monroe Falls High School in Summit County. Your hard work in and out of the classroom sets you apart. Keep up the great work. I hope you have a wonderful year ahead. Go Bulldogs.
At Stowe Monroe Falls, we're Bulldog proud.
We excel in academics, offering 22 AP courses.
We excel on the field and on the court too. We have 32 teams with winning records at the regional and state level.
Our music program is top notch. We are known as a top community for the music education. Every year, our musicians go out and compete and win at a state level.
And everyone in the Bulldog country gets involved. We have 37 activities and clubs for students.
We even have published authors on staff, 15% to be exact.
We're proud to be the Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education School of the Year.
Congratulations to Stowe Monroe Falls High School, the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education School of the Year. You can nominate outstanding students and teachers by visiting OhioLottery.com.
Congratulations to Stowe Monroe Falls, the Partners in Education School of the Year. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com, AJ Mansour from KFAN. He'll give us the lowdown on what the Vikings are thinking and what to watch for as the Vikings take on the Browns Sunday at 1 o'clock. We'll see you again tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Sports for CLE. Have a great night, everybody.